Okay, so today we are going to create our designs for the sides of our polyhedron. So this is the piece that we are going to print. We will be carving these. So we get a material like this. It's almost rubbery, like an eraser. And then we are going to take a carving tool and we're going to remove parts of our design so that there's area for ink to go on. And then we are going to stamp this on paper and we'll cut these out into triangles and glue them into the circles that we've been folding. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through how to create your design. The first thing we need to do is measure the side of our triangle. Remember, these are supposed to be equilateral triangles. Mine is pretty close to 3 1/4 inches, so I'm going to divide that in half, which would get me to 1 5/8. So if I go from 0 at the corner here, I go to 1 inch, then here's 1 1/2, and then I go to the next little line beyond that. That would be 1 5/8. So that would be roughly the halfway point. And then I can take and go from the corner to that spot on the side. Okay, so that divides my space in half. So this is what symmetrical balance would look like. Whatever we place on this line, we need to center. Remember, anything that touches the sides or is in the corners, those are the parts that are going to tessellate. And I want to check where things are lining up here. So if I measure, I see that this is at this point here, and I can measure and see, yep, that's pretty close to being the same on both sides. And then I might measure down and decide, okay, at about the 1 1/2 inch mark, I'm going to have another thing connect to the side here. I like that angle a little bit better. So I could take my ruler. Remember, it's good to be precise. So notice whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. If I only put it on one side of my line of symmetry, so that's my line of symmetry here, then it wouldn't be symmetrically balanced. I have these templates that you're welcome to use. So I could use this to draw my circle on either side here. Okay, so I like that. The next one I want to try is a radial balance one, so you can use either type of balance. So for this one, we need 3 lines of symmetry, not just one. So I'm going to place this on here, and again, I'm going for 1 5/8 as my halfway point. It all depends on the size of your equilateral triangle that you're working with. And then this time I'm going to rotate my paper and I'm going to redo that same process. So again, 1 5/8, and then I connect from the corner to the opposite, and then here's my last one. Okay, 1 5/8, and I start at the corner, connect across my lines of symmetry for radial balance. Now for this one, I might place something where these points intersect. I would probably want to find a template to draw my circle, but for time's sake, I'm just going to go ahead and sketch it in real quick. So I'm going to start with a circle here. Now I want to make sure that my design tessellates, so I'm going to add a diamond in the corner so that I have a shape touching the sides of my triangle. And because this has 3 lines of symmetry, I need to do this in all 3 corners. Remember, you want your design to take up more positive space than negative space, meaning you don't want a lot of empty gaps within your design. So I'm going to add some more shapes to my design. Now, one of the things to keep in mind, you also want to make sure that you are using your ruler to do some measurements. The more precise that you can be in placing your shapes, the more likely your designs will tessellate the way that you want them to. You can also add shapes within the spaces between your lines of symmetry. So here you'll see that I'm freehanding in some triangles to add some more detail to my design. But notice in each of the spaces I have to repeat the shape in order to keep the radial balance of my design. So now that I have my designs done, and I'd want you to do at least one more design, come up with a third design to test out, because sometimes your first design isn't going to be the design that you'll be able to carve. So I would try and do at least 2 to 3 designs so we can pick the one that will work best for this project. So once you have your designs, the next thing you need to do is erase your lines of symmetry, unless you want them to show. But having your lines of symmetry show oftentimes will make your design more difficult to carve. And then the next thing you want to do is plan out where you would carve and where you would have ink color showing. So it helps, you only get 2 colors. So a lot of times on this first one, I will just take and kind of sketch in where I plan to carve or where I want my ink to show. So right now, what I'm coloring in, this is going to be my ink color. So this would be my ink color. White areas are going to be where I carve. Okay? So a lot of times if you have rounded shapes, it's easier to carve, or smaller shapes, it's easier to carve around the outside than it is to try and carve out this little teeny tiny space inside. Again, while you're designing, please be careful not to go too small with your shapes. Try not to go overly detailed. You want some detail. So this is part of what I want to show you. So like right here, I can either take and just carve this line here, or if I want this to be broken up a little bit more, I could take and add another line here and then choose to have ink here and carve in between there. So sometimes as you're going along coloring in your design, you realize, wait a minute, I don't want it to look quite like this. I need to go ahead and add an additional line to help it have that alternating of ink and paper that you want it to have. So here would be my symmetrical design, where I would have ink would be the colored in areas, and then so those would be the areas that I would have raised, and then the white areas here, those would be the areas that I'm carving out. For this one here, again, I think it would be easier to carve around my circles and around my triangles. Trying to get into that point is going to be really difficult. So it would be easier for me to carve around the outside of it. My ink color is going to be what's raised. That's what I'm going to take time to color in. So think about color the things that would be difficult to carve. And you only have to color in the one that you're planning to do your carving for. Remember to have the teacher look over your design and approve which one you're going to go with to make sure that it will work for the carving process.